In 2003, the CIA made a catastrophic mistake. They accidentally declassified a document so dangerous it could collapse everything we've been taught about life, death, and reality itself. This wasn't just another intelligence report. This document proves what happens after you die, and why everything you've been told is a lie. Governments, religions, and powerful institutions depend on your fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of punishment, fear of death. Their control requires your mortality. According to the findings, consciousness is not created by the brain, but tuned into it, like a radio picking up a signal. Your thoughts, your awareness, your very identity do not originate in your body. And when you die, you don't stop existing. You just change frequency. It all began with Robert Monroe, a radio engineer who discovered that certain sound frequencies could alter human consciousness. His findings weren't speculation. They were so accurate, so dangerously real, that the US Army funded his research. They sent Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell to document every aspect of Monroe's experiments. His final report wasn't speculation. It was a detailed, scientific breakdown of what happens when consciousness ventures beyond the body. What he uncovered went far beyond military applications. He found proof that reality is nothing like what we've been told. The CIA's research confirmed what mystics have claimed for millennia. Consciousness doesn't vanish at death. It transitions. The document explains that human awareness simply shifts to different vibrational planes. This aligns perfectly with the most fundamental law of physics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. What we call death is not an end. It's a frequency shift. The gateway process identified specific states of consciousness, focus levels that anyone could access with proper training. Focus 1. Ordinary physical reality. Focus 10. The body asleep, but the mind awake. Focus 15. Where time itself collapses. In the deepest state, Focus 15, participants reported experiencing past and future events simultaneously, not as predictions, but as already existing. Because time as we experience it is not real. It's a limitation of the physical brain. The gateway process used calibrated sound frequencies, binaural beats, to synchronize the brain hemispheres. They targeted specific brain wave states, theta, 4 to 7 hertz, the same frequency as deep meditation, and the moment before death. Here, subjects reported floating outside their bodies, watching themselves from above. And when they returned, they remembered conversations that happened in rooms where their physical bodies had never been. The world teaches you to reject your darkness, but your power lies in embracing all of yourself, light and shadow alike. True awakening isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. But the gateway process findings were confirmed by something even more compelling: near-death experiences. Dr. Sam Parnia, at NYU Langone Medical Center studied thousands of cardiac arrest survivors. 10% reported vivid, structured experiences when their brains showed no measurable activity. Take Maria's case. Her heart stopped for 14 minutes. Yet later, she accurately described a red tennis shoe on a third-floor hospital ledge, a shoe impossible to see from her bed, verified by skeptical researchers. How? Unless her consciousness wasn't in her body, but somewhere above it. Even more shocking, blind people, including those blind from birth, report visual perceptions during NDEs. They accurately describe colors, objects, and environments they've never physically seen. The implications are staggering. You're about to discover how to rewrite the unconscious programming that's been running your life on autopilot. You don't stop existing, you just change frequency. It all began with Robert Monroe, a radio engineer who discovered that certain sound frequencies could alter human consciousness. His findings weren't speculation. They were so accurate. This is why governments, religions, and institutions throughout history have worked so hard to bury this knowledge. Because the moment people stop fearing death, they stop fearing control. And once enough people wake up to this, everything changes. The CIA didn't just find life after death. They found freedom from the greatest lie ever told. And we're just scratching the surface of what the Gateway document really reveals. The Gateway Process document remained classified for decades. When it finally emerged, in 2003, it wasn't supposed to be seen by the public. But once released, it couldn't be buried again. At the core of the Gateway process was a revolutionary technique, hemispheric synchronization. Using precisely calibrated sound frequencies, they could force the brain's left and right hemispheres to work in perfect harmony, creating a state usually achieved only by master meditators after decades of practice. This created a ladder of consciousness states, each focus level revealing more of reality's true nature. The higher you climbed, the more the illusions fell away. In Focus 10, Mind Awake, Body Asleep, participants maintained full consciousness while their physical bodies entered complete relaxation. The gateway between worlds began to open. By Focus 12, expanded awareness, they could perceive information beyond physical senses, remote locations, past events, future possibilities. The boundaries between self and universe began to dissolve. But Focus 15, No Time, was where participants reported the most profound shift. Here, time wasn't just bent or extended. It ceased to exist as a linear concept. Past, present, and future were experienced simultaneously, as they truly exist in reality. This aligns perfectly with quantum mechanics, where particles exist as probability waves until observed. Consciousness doesn't just perceive reality, it helps create it. The gateway process wasn't just exploring consciousness, it was revealing how reality itself works. The most extraordinary reports weren't about locations or events. Many participants, isolated from one another, described encounters with intelligent, non-physical beings, coherent, self-aware entities inhabiting these other realms permanently. But gateway process findings gained unexpected validation from the medical field. Near-death experiences, NDEs, provided raw, unfiltered proof that consciousness exists beyond the brain. With no scientific manipulation involved, cardiac arrest survivors reported consistent patterns regardless of culture, geography, or beliefs. Dr. Sam Parnia, one of the world's foremost NDE researchers at NYU Langone Medical Center, studied thousands of cardiac arrest survivors. He found that 10% report vivid, structured experiences during periods when their brains show no measurable activity. What's remarkable, he notes, is that these experiences occur when the brain is too compromised to create complex, lucid hallucinations. The conventional explanation that NDEs are dying brain hallucinations simply doesn't hold up to scientific scrutiny. Even more shocking, many individuals return with verifiable information they could not have known through conventional means. Detailed conversations between medical staff in other rooms. Objects hidden in impossible-to-see locations. Technical procedures performed while they were clinically dead. The blind see during NDEs. Even those blind from birth report detailed visual perceptions, colors, faces, environments, despite never having developed the neural pathways for vision. This single fact demolishes the hallucination theory. You cannot hallucinate in a sensory modality you've never experienced. The gateway process offers the missing key. Consciousness exists on a frequency spectrum. Death isn't an end, but a transition point, a shift from one frequency to another. The brain doesn't generate consciousness. It receives and filters it, like a radio tuning into a station. Think about it. Governments, religions, financial systems, they all depend on your fear. Fear of punishment, fear of exclusion, fear of death. What happens to these systems when death is revealed not as an end, but a transition? When the ultimate threat loses its power. The most dangerous revelation in the Gateway document isn't scientific, it's revolutionary. Once you know consciousness survives death, you can't be controlled through fear of mortality. The ultimate power structure, the fear of death itself, collapses. This is why they tried to bury it. This is why the document was classified for decades. Not because it revealed government secrets, but because it revealed the secret that makes government control possible. The ultimate illusion that death is the end. Now you face a choice. Return to the comfortable illusion that death is the end, that consciousness is just brain chemistry, that you are nothing but a temporary collection of atoms. Or accept what the Gateway process revealed, that your consciousness is eternal, that reality is far vaster than you've been told. The Gateway process wasn't just a military experiment. It wasn't just about psychic spying or out-of-body experiences. It was the scientific validation of what mystics have claimed for millennia, that consciousness is the fundamental reality, that you are not your body, that death is just a doorway. In the next part of our exploration, we'll dive deeper into the specific techniques the gateway process used to access these states of consciousness. We'll examine the scientific evidence behind their findings. And most importantly, we'll reveal what this means for you and your understanding of what happens when you die. The truth about consciousness doesn't just change how you view death, it changes how you live. Stay with us as we continue to uncover what they tried to bury, the CIA's gateway process, and the scientific proof of life beyond death. Let's go deeper into the gateway process. It began with Robert Monroe, not a mystic or priest, but a radio engineer who discovered that sound could alter consciousness. In the 1950s, Monroe accidentally found that certain audio frequencies created profound, out-of-body states. He founded the Monroe Institute to study these states systematically. What started as personal exploration became the most scientifically rigorous investigation of consciousness ever conducted. His techniques were so effective that by the 1970s, the US military and CIA were regular clients. The cornerstone of the gateway process was a technology called binaural beats. When your right ear receives a tone of 200 Hz and your left ear receives 204 Hz, your brain creates a third tone, a 4 Hz beat frequency. This third tone doesn't exist in the physical world, only in your consciousness. By precisely calibrating these frequencies, Monroe found he could force the brain's hemispheres to synchronize, creating whole brain functioning. The analytical left brain and intuitive right brain would begin working in harmony instead of isolation. This creates states usually achieved only through decades of meditation practice. The gateway process targeted specific brainwave states: beta, 13 to 30 Hz, normal waking consciousness; alpha, 8 to 13 Hz, relaxed awareness, light meditation; theta, 4 to 7 Hz, deep meditation, REM sleep, heightened suggestibility; delta, 0.5 to 4 Hz, dreamless sleep, non-physical awareness. The deeper the brainwave state, the more expanded the consciousness became. Monroe patented this technology as Hemi-Sync, hemispheric synchronization. Through the 1970s and 80s, over 3,000 participants experienced these states in controlled settings. Unlike drugs or hypnosis, Hemi-Sync produced consistent, replicable results without side effects. Users remained fully conscious and could recall their experiences in detail. The gateway process defined 21 plus distinct focus levels of consciousness, each representing a different frequency band of reality. Focus 1, physical waking reality. Focus 10 to 21, non-physical reality accessible while alive. Focus 22 to 27, states typically experienced after death. Focus 27 plus, realms beyond human comprehension. These weren't theoretical. They were mapped through thousands of consistent reports. Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell was the military intelligence officer assigned to document the gateway process. His report wasn't speculation or theory. It was the most thorough analysis of consciousness ever commissioned by the US government. What makes his conclusions so compelling is that he began as a skeptic. He ended as a convert. McDonnell's report concluded that reality itself is a holographic system. Physical matter is a holographic projection, information arranged into form through consciousness. This wasn't mystical speculation. It aligned with emerging theories in quantum physics and holographic universe models. The universe isn't matter with consciousness. It's consciousness creating the appearance of matter. The exact words from the Declassified Gateway document state, "The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity." The document continues, "The human being himself is an energy field of enormous complexity that is quite capable of influencing the energy systems around him." The Gateway document explicitly states that consciousness is not created by the brain. The brain is a receiver, a biological interface that filters universal consciousness into individual experience. Death isn't the end of consciousness. It's simply the receiver changing frequency. Like turning off a radio doesn't destroy the music, it continues broadcasting elsewhere. The Gateway findings align perfectly with what we know about near-death experiences. According to the largest scientific study of NDEs conducted by Dr. Sam Parnia and published in the journal Resuscitation, consciousness continues even when the brain shows no detectable activity. Patients accurately report events that occurred while they were clinically dead, events later verified by medical staff. For centuries, science has operated under materialism, the belief that matter creates consciousness. But the Gateway process and NDE research suggest the opposite. Consciousness creates matter. This isn't mysticism defeating science. It's science evolving beyond outdated assumptions. The most cutting-edge physics now aligns with what the Gateway process discovered decades ago. Consider the famous double-slit experiment in quantum physics. Particles behave like waves of probability until observed. Then they collapse into definite positions. The act of conscious observation determines physical reality. As quantum physicist Max Planck stated, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. Matter is derivative from consciousness." This experimentally verified fact supports everything the Gateway process discovered. Einstein proved that time is relative, not absolute. The Gateway process took this further, demonstrating that linear time is a perceptual limitation, not a fundamental reality. In Focus 15, participants experienced past, present, and future simultaneously. This isn't science fiction. It's consistent with Einstein's block universe theory, where all time exists at once. Our experience of linear time is simply how consciousness organizes information in physical form. The Gateway process yielded practical applications: remote viewing, the ability to perceive distant locations without physical senses. This wasn't fringe pseudoscience. It was so effective that from 1978 to 1995, the US military ran the Stargate program, using remote viewing for intelligence gathering. Declassified documents confirm viewers successfully described Soviet military installations, terrorist hideouts, and hostage locations with accuracy that defied statistical probability. Remote viewer Joseph McMoneagle was awarded the Legion of Merit for providing intelligence unavailable from any other source. Ingo Swann accurately described Soviet facilities, including details invisible to satellite reconnaissance. The remote viewers consistently accessed information that violated everything we're taught about the physical limitations of consciousness. How? The Gateway document explains. Consciousness isn't limited by space or time, only by our belief that it is. Perhaps most startling were reports of intelligent, non-physical entities encountered in higher focus levels. These weren't described as ghosts or spirits in the traditional sense, but as fully conscious beings native to non-physical reality. Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell's report addresses these encounters matter-of-factly, noting that participants from different backgrounds describe similar entities with consistent characteristics across sessions. The Gateway document makes an extraordinary assertion. Consciousness doesn't just perceive reality, it helps create it. Matter behaves like thought, McDonnell writes. Thought behaves like matter. This reality creation aspect explains why focus and intention were crucial in Gateway protocols. Participants weren't just explorers of reality, they were architects of it. This principle powers Gateway's most profound applications. But here's the question that haunted government officials. What happens to control systems when people discover they are eternal? Not theoretically eternal, provably eternal. The entire structure of society depends on mortality fear. Financial systems thriving on scarcity mindsets. Religions promising salvation from death. Governments enforcing compliance through force. All require you to fear the end of existence. This explains why the Gateway document remained classified for decades. The information wasn't just uncomfortable, it was revolutionary. By the late 1980s, the program was increasingly hidden. Knowledge that was transformative for humanity became classified as a potential threat to national security. But the truth doesn't remain buried forever. In 2003, through what appears to be an administrative error, the Gateway process document was declassified alongside routine military records. Once digital, it couldn't be contained. The document confirmed what mystics, near-death experiencers, and consciousness researchers had claimed. Consciousness isn't produced by the brain, doesn't end at death, and can access information beyond physical limitations. What does this mean for your daily life? The Gateway process techniques aren't just theoretical, they're practical. Thousands have used these methods to reduce anxiety, enhance creativity, improve physical healing, and access intuitive information. The Monroe Institute continues offering these programs today. The techniques don't require belief, only practice. But the implications extend beyond individual benefits. As more people recognize the evidence for consciousness beyond the brain, society itself begins to transform. fear-based control systems lose their grip. This may explain the increasing collapse of public trust in institutions, a collective intuition that we've been told a fundamental lie about the nature of our existence. The greatest threat to any control system isn't external revolution, it's internal revelation. When enough individuals recognize their eternal nature, fear-based systems naturally collapse. No violent resistance required. Simple awareness dissolves the illusion. This isn't speculation. It's the inevitable consequence of what the gateway process discovered. You are not your body. Your consciousness is eternal. Death is a transition, not an end. Your consciousness is literally selecting which potential future becomes reality. Every thought, every choice, every action is a vote for which timeline humanity experiences. This isn't metaphorical. It's the quantum nature of reality. By consistently choosing love over fear, unity over division, and possibility over limitation, you help manifest the highest. The question isn't whether consciousness survives death. The evidence is overwhelming that it does. The real question is, will you live differently knowing you are eternal? Will you recognize fear-based control for what it is? Will you embrace the vastness of your true nature? The gateway process wasn't just revealing what happens after death. It was revealing who you truly are, right now. In the next part, we'll explore specific gateway techniques you can apply in your own life. We'll examine more documented cases of consciousness beyond the brain, and we'll reveal precisely how to verify these truths through your own direct experience. No belief required. The CIA's accidental revelation wasn't just about life after death. It's about freedom during life. The gateway process didn't end with declassification. The Monroe Institute continues the work today, having trained over 40,000 people in Hemi-Sync techniques. Their programs are no longer classified military operations. They're available to anyone seeking to explore consciousness beyond physical limitations. Scientists, doctors, business leaders, and ordinary people participate in these programs, often reporting life-changing results. The core gateway techniques aren't mystical secrets. They're practical protocols anyone can learn. They begin with controlled breathing and progressive relaxation, followed by specific visualizations while listening to precisely calibrated binaural beats. With consistent practice, participants report consciousness separation from the physical body, access to intuitive information, and direct experience of awareness beyond physical limitations. The scientific community is increasingly validating these findings. The University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies has documented thousands of cases suggesting consciousness survival beyond physical death. Researchers at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have measured the effects of consciousness on physical systems under controlled laboratory conditions. The Journal of Near-Death Studies publishes peer-reviewed research confirming key elements of the gateway findings. We're witnessing a paradigm shift in our understanding of consciousness. Dr. Bruce Grayson, Professor Emeritus of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia, states, "The evidence suggests that our physical brain doesn't produce consciousness, but rather filters and limits it." Nobel Prize-winning physicist Sir Roger Penrose proposes that consciousness may be a quantum phenomenon existing at a fundamental level of reality. Science is catching up to what the gateway process discovered decades ago. What does this mean for you personally? Understanding that consciousness doesn't end at death transforms how you live now. Research shows that people who have near-death experiences or who deeply understand consciousness survival report decreased fear of death, increased compassion, reduced materialism, and greater sense of purpose. This isn't religious conversion. It's the natural result of recognizing your true nature. When you recognize that death is a transition rather than an end, the fear that drives most human suffering begins to dissolve. The scarcity mindset that fuels constant acquisition loses its grip. The fear of judgment that constrains authentic expression fades away. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's recognizing that many of our deepest fears are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what we are. The gateway process isn't about escaping this life. It's about living more fully within it. Participants report heightened sensory awareness, deeper connections with others, and greater appreciation for everyday experiences. By recognizing that consciousness extends beyond physical limitations, you paradoxically become more fully present in your physical experience. This is why the CIA document wasn't just about life after death. It was about the true nature of life itself. We are not asking you to believe anything on faith. Unlike religious dogma, the gateway process findings are verifiable through direct experience. The Monroe Institute offers programs for personal exploration. Universities study these phenomena in controlled settings. Binaural beat technology is widely available. You can verify these truths yourself through your own experience. This isn't about belief. It's about discovery. The CIA document's accidental release may have triggered something unstoppable. As more people recognize the evidence for consciousness beyond the brain, a cascade effect begins. Each person who awakens to this truth influences those around them. The fear-based systems lose power not through violent opposition, but through simple recognition of a deeper truth. This may explain why the document was classified for so long. Not because it threatened national security, but because it threatened systems of control. Imagine a society where death is understood as transition rather than end, where consciousness, not matter, is recognized as fundamental, where connection replaces separation, where eternal perspective guides daily choices. This isn't utopian fantasy. It's the logical outcome of taking the gateway findings seriously. This future isn't guaranteed. It depends on how many recognize and integrate this understanding. The declassified document wasn't just revealing government secrets. It was revealing the path to humanity's evolution. So what will you do with this information? Will you dismiss it as conspiracy theory despite the declassified evidence? Will you acknowledge it intellectually but continue living as if death is the end? Or will you take the invitation to explore consciousness beyond physical limitations, to verify through direct experience what the gateway process revealed? The choice is yours, but know this: once you recognize your eternal nature, you can never fully return to the illusion of mortality. The Gateway document may be the most significant declassified file in history, not because it revealed military secrets, but because it revealed the fundamental secret of human existence. What began as a classified CIA program investigating consciousness has become a catalyst for global awakening. The truth wasn't buried forever. It couldn't be, because ultimately, it's the truth about who you are. The CIA's Gateway process discovered what mystics have taught for millennia. Consciousness is not created by the brain. Death is not the end. You are not your body. You are eternal awareness, having a temporary physical experience. This understanding doesn't diminish this life. It enriches it immeasurably. Because when you know you are eternal, you can finally, truly live. In our next exploration, we'll dive deeper into the specific techniques used in the Gateway process, methods you can apply in your own life to experience consciousness beyond physical limitations. We'll examine more verified cases of consciousness surviving physical death, and we'll reveal how this understanding is transforming medicine, psychology, and our concept of what it means